This is the mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. We are based on the principle called the idea. We inform and entertain. We develop and educate. We empower and support. We associate and network. That's the idea. Let me upfront apologize on behalf of Wawa Sogoli Paul. He is down with flu today. I hope he is tuning in. He's not able to join, but we will be with him in the coming week. Let's welcome everybody. We are recording the show. It's running well. We will have a podcast available at the end, and you can get the podcast at comenzaradiopodcast.com. I see we have just lost Leonard Mavuso. He will come back, but let me give my colleagues Franz Ramutla and Mai Mutubazi to greet our guests our listeners while we're waiting for our guest. And Ntate Ramutla, welcome as always.
Evening, listeners. My name is Franz Ramutla. I am a member of Cometa, and I'm a social worker by profession. I have worked for the Gauteng provincial department, occupying various positions, and I'm a former president of SAPSWA. Today we will be reviewing Chapter 7. You are your culture. Thank you.
Welcome, Ntate Ramutla. Over to you, Mai.
Good evening, listeners. My name is Mai Mutubazi. I'm in the arts. I'm a writer, scriptwriter, a producer. Yes, and it's such a wonderful evening today, and I'm hoping that you'll really be with us all the way as we review Chapter 7, which is about our culture. And I hope that we'll all be able to identify with some of points that will be made in this chapter. Enjoy it.
Wonderful. Ntate Mavuso, you are the first ready to go. Will join a little bit later. Perhaps let's give you time to introduce yourself, tell the listeners who you are, and what will you be covering as we review the Chapter 7, You Are Your Culture. You and Ready to Go are our main guests today, so it's all yours. Over to you to greet and introduce yourself.
Good evening to the listeners. Good evening to the people at the studio there, Sam and Ntate Ramutla. And good evening later to Ray Elijah, who will be joining us. I must say I'm grateful to be part of this journey and to have been invited to review Chapter 7.
Beautiful. Just a little bit background about yourself. We know you very well, but I'm sure there's a number of people who would like to know a little bit about Leonard. What have you been doing in the past, in the corporate years? What are you doing currently, and what will you be focusing on as you review Chapter 7, Leonard?
And maybe if we can also touch on your culture, since we'll be talking about culture today. Can you hear that, Leonard?
Okay, Leonard seems to be not getting us. Franz, Ntate Ramutla, are you ready to just give us your own insights so far while Leonard is still sort of like getting back, because we seem to be having challenge with his connection?
I'll start from the end, Brasem, by sharing with the listeners my aha moments.
From the chapter.
My aha moment was how Brasem is able to describe each and every cultural activity that he was exposed to during his childhood journey, and how those cultural activities inform his coaching and mentoring perspective now and in the future. Rasam, you indeed took me through down memory lane because most of the
Hello.
activities that you are
We
describing.
are with you, Leonard. We'll give you a chance once Ntate Mutla has given his introductory remarks.
Okay, sure.
No. Carry on, Ntate Mutla.
Oh, I was saying you indeed took me down memory lane because most of the activities that you described are the activities that I went through as I grew up. Thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful. We were asking Leonard just to tell the listeners a little bit about himself, what he did in the past and what he's doing currently, and then, of course, what he would like to cover as he reviews the chapter. Over to you, Leonard.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks for the opportunity. As introduced, my name is Leonard Mavuso. I've been in human resources for the last 35 years, and I think 25 of those I spent them at that executive level. I also participate in governance structures in terms of boards. I've recently retired, but not in terms of work, but in terms of formal work. And I run a consulting firm called Humanity and Talent Consulting, which focuses on.
We seem to have lost Ntate Mavuso.
He's still there, but we just can't hear him. I think his connection is quite struggling. Over to you, Mai. Maybe you can just give us what you are picking up while we are sorting out Leonard's connection.
Okay. With me, this chapter, it raises a lot of points, which I can say that it's very it's something that we need to look into. For instance, the author speaks about the different storytellers, whereby you'd have different storytellers, but every time there's only one that tells the story, and you'll all listen to that story. And there will be a time when one comes with a story that you have already heard, but you listen. You don't spoil it for others. You listen to the story. And for me, that is like, when you listen to it, because in the book, the author says that when you listen to it from the other storyteller, sometimes it becomes nicer than the previous version. So meaning that even there, it shows how we grow, how growing up, we kind of learned how to identify perspective, how to be able to say, okay, this is his perspective, this is this other person's perspective, and which one would you go with? And the other thing is about, that having that, there was no judgment. Nobody judged anyone. But what I liked most is that our culture also taught us to be passionate. Because in the book, Prasem also mentions that, we sang and danced when we were happy. We sang and danced when we were sad. So somehow that builds character in every one of us. It kind of gives you that moment of being by yourself. And subconsciously, if you have that, you grow passion for what you do. It doesn't matter that you're sad. If you have to sing, you will sing with the passion for that moment. When you're happy, you'll sing with the very same passion for that occasion. So that's my take home for me when it comes to this chapter.
Beautiful. I'm not sure if Leonard is back with us. Leonard, are you back with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, over to you.
Yes, I think I have introduced myself. And one of the points I raised was that I am a qualified coach. I think.
Leonard, I'm not sure if you are connecting from your phone. Maybe perhaps if you are able to connect from your your laptop, that will help, because we seem to be struggling. You are not even able to finish a sentence, so that means the network is a bit weak on your side. Perhaps maybe connect from the phone. Michael, if you can hear me in the background, maybe just give Leonard a call and ask him to perhaps connect from the phone, from the laptop, because it looks like he's struggling to be stable on the line. Ntate Mutla, perhaps maybe we can dive into the chapter while we're waiting for Leonard and Litheko to join us. They seem to be having challenges with connection.
I was attracted by your first statement in the book when you say that everyone has a culture and belongs to a particular group that has shaped his or her upbringing, development, and growth. And you indeed said that one does not entirely change from who they are, but instead adjust to the new circumstances in their life. And you believe that one's culture and way of being are dynamic. I agree with you that culture is not static, but is dynamic. You remind me when I was doing philosophy at the University of the North, we used to say, man is not only a being, but always a becoming. So this confirms that culture indeed it is dynamic, and that it informs and is informed by the changing situation in which a person finds himself or herself. Indeed, in coaching, we appreciate and acknowledge this phenomenon in ourselves as coaches and in our clients. And if I'm to continue, you are asking us what new behaviors or practices or in our professional life will we adopt as a result of reading the chapter. I will reinforce in social work, we have the principle of empathy, that putting yourself in the boots of the other person you are engaging with without being judgmental. That is, you embrace his or her experiences which might be current or in the past, whilst channeling them to future positive outcomes. I would also like to confirm that after reading this book, I confirm that culture is defined as a way of doing things. Prasem has outlined the activities that he went through, which informed who he is, how he presents himself, his coaching, and mentoring perspective. My way of doing things, Prasem, was characterized by the leadership I exercised as a captain of Boyne United in Tembisa, and the confidence, the leadership of the players, the confidence of the leadership and the players that had on me. As a coach, I would guide them on how to constitute a winning team. And my mentorship role was how each and every team member should behave and apply himself to be promoted into the first division of the club. Unfortunately for me, listeners and Brasem, I don't know, it was because of my competency or because maybe I was not competitive. I used to recruit many players into the team and build them into being competent team players. But for me, promotion did not. Many years. But I'm happy the team, belonging to the team, has indeed molded me to be who I am in terms of my nature, my character, and my personality. I'm proud of myself based on my involvement, the culture that I learned from being a team leader. Thank you.
The title of the chapter, Ntate Mutla, seems to be suggesting that Your culture gives you an identity. How do you see that? How do you read that? Where it says you are your culture. Basically, we are suggesting that the culture gives you identity and gives you a definition. Is that speaking to you well?
Yes, indeed, it is speaking to me very well. And why I say it is speaking to me very well is the feedback I'm getting to the people when they describe who I am. It shows that the culture that I went through has given me who I am, both in the church, both in the community. It shows that the person that I am reflects the culture that I went through, and that has informed who I am currently. Thanks.
Let's welcome Litheko. Litheko, welcome. I hope you can hear as well.
Yes, Amy, thank you. I can hear you. Can you hear me from my side?
Very well, loud and clear. Welcome. We're happy to have you here. I hope you are catching up with what we are discussing, but perhaps we invite you to start sharing your insights after reading the chapter. We should give you an opportunity to just greet the listeners and introduce yourself as to who you are and what have you been busy with up to so far.
Introduce myself from when?
No, I don't have to go into detail. For those who don't know you, just I have mentioned that you and I we met at the IPM, the ex-IPM CEO. I think a lot of people know that, but just your own perspective into the topic perhaps will help.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Commenter
evening.
and community radio podcast listeners. I'm happy to be joining you this evening. As Ratima has said, my name is Litheko. I come from Northwest in a small township called Kanana Township in Orkney. That's where I grew up and attended my primary school. And I was involved in a lot of community activities there, including being a civic association president and the chairman of the education crisis then in the 80s. If Pat Hole is here, he's a colleague of mine. I used to work with him for a company called H&H Mining Timber. He was in head office and I was at the regional level.
Yes, unfortunately, he's not able to join. He's not feeling well. But yeah, unfortunately, he's a regular with on our conversations.
That's right. Then I moved to Joburg and working for another forestry company, state-owned one in Pretoria. And then after that, I joined IPM during difficult time because the country was going through a transition. And in that position as CEO, I served with Sam and other members, and we stopped IPM from being liquidated. It was challenging, but we managed to do that with the support of all the board members, committee members, and everybody who was involved at that time. And I retired in 2017. Now, before I retired, I was married to a very committed wife who passed on in 2016. Sam knows her very well. That took me a little because if you have stayed with a person for such a long time and she disappears from your life, you seem to go through a transition of some sort. But that is over now. And then currently, I'm just serving on the board of the Southern African Society for Corporate Education. I also met Sam there at the time when they invited me to serve on their board. I think that will suffice them for now.
Yeah, wonderful. Let's try and that Leonard Mavuso, who is back with us, just to take it from where he left. Thanks, Litheko, for that introduction. We'll give you the opportunity to delve into the chapter and share with us your insights and reviews from the chapter.
Thank you very much.
Ntate Mavuso, are you able now to continue where you left it?
Yes, I am. I think I did indicate that, look, one of the qualifications that I have is that I'm a qualified coach. And I think what impressed me on the book was that how we can use the tool of storytelling as coaches to be able to deal with what the coaches need from us without imposing ourselves. And as you all know, that coaching is about creating a thinking environment. And I think the storytelling concept, it really created a thinking environment. It made people to imagine things that they wouldn't see just by listening to the story. And for me, that's a very powerful tool that can be used to be able to develop young people.
Are you applying it in your coaching practice as a methodology, Ntate Mavuso? Leonard, can you hear me? Okay. His connection is a challenge, but I think we got the point there that Ramutla Leonard is saying that storytelling actually is a methodology one can use when engaging in coaching, and I assume also in mentorship, because it's about creating the thinking environment. I think that is the point that he's sharing with us there.
Oh, indeed. When you look at the preparations before you go to storytelling, acknowledging that it takes place at the fireplace, acknowledging that there are people that are telling the stories, and how attentive the children will be listening to that person. Indeed, it constitutes some of the methodologies that are used in coaching and mentoring, and it defines the relationship between the mentor and the mentee. Yeah, indeed, that is
for us as Africans, that is natural because we just grew up.
indeed.
So we're already equipped with that. Ready to go?
Hello, sir.
I was saying that storytelling is African, and we grow up listening to stories and learning through stories. It should be natural as we embark on coaching and mentoring that storytelling could be used as a tool, and we can do it with perfection.
It's in our DNA, sir.
Yeah.
It comes automatically.
Yeah. Over to you, Litheko. Maybe you can expand it a little bit when you were going through the chapter. What are the pointers that you want?
All right. Can I go through? Firstly, I would like to congratulate you, Semi, for having reached this glorious milestone of writing and publishing this informative book.
Thank you, Litheko.
And then when I went through it, it really sort of energized and inspired me. And because you are talking about your perspective in that book, people's perspective might be different.
Yeah.
And what they have experienced with culture might be different from yours. But there is nothing wrong with that. But what you have done, you have sort of aroused the interest for other people to share their perspective in future. That's what I think. Now, when I look at the chapter that you said we need to review, what I picked up are the following. That you categorically assert that we have all been born into a particular culture that has influenced our outlook on life. You further argue that in your case, the African culture in which you were brought up has had a positive impact on your career and perspective. And you open the culture in a firm manner by saying the following: everyone has a culture and belongs to a particular group that has shaped his or her upbringing, development, and growth. You outlined how the cultural activities and protocols shaped you to be the man that we know you today. And you believe that we all have the capacity to do the same. Some of the behaviors that your cultural upbringing has taught you are important to maintaining respectful relationships are the following. 1, patience. In your experience, as you have already said, storytelling around the fire has taught you the importance of patience in establishing cordial and respectful relationships. It also taught you not to be judgmental of other people's views. But what is important is that you need to develop a habit of applauding and celebrating the effort of others, because this is energizing and stimulating. That's what I picked up, firstly. I'm still going on, Semi.
The listening, yes, Richard.
In today's modern world, unfortunately, we are living in a multimedia environment that has overtaken the fireplace storytelling encounters. Now, the challenge that we have is that how do we leverage on these multimedia platforms to continue with this beautiful tradition? This is one of the issues that need to be looked into going forward.
Good point. We will definitely note that. We'll come back to that later.
And then you also raises the point that listening attentively when others are speaking, particularly in storytelling, without interrupting them until they finish to speak, and for you to wait for your turn, because your turn will come. It's a very powerful tool, even in coaching. When you interact with your coaches, allow them to express themselves without you chipping in and telling them how smart you are. And then you're also thinking about teamwork, the activities that represent teamwork in your view. And this one, we all know it. We share food together with a big plate together. And you say that type of activity contributed to bonding with your colleagues and promoting the spirit of team spirit, and promoting team spirit. As well as fairy tales also contributed to the same team building effort. The knowledge contest that you participated in with your colleagues helped to build cognitive skills, and the various games that you played together contributed to developing motor skills. In African context, because we needed to deal with boredom, jokes were the feature of our lives. And we are raising it here. And they contributed to entertainment, to fun, to resignation, and they would also cultivate into singing and dancing. That's why you can sing so well. Most of us can sing very well. You highlight the importance of cultural protocols and practices. One, as we have already said, is the storytelling, which you see as a medium through which knowledge was transferred from generation to generation around the fireplace. But as I've said, people have migrated to urban areas. The fireplace is not the center any longer. Multimedia is. How do we enter into that space to continue with this tradition of storytelling?
Or a conference room or a seminar room is the meeting place.
Yes.
But the principles and the concepts are still applicable.
Exactly. All right.
Great. Let me ask
No,
you
okay. I haven't finished.
to.
You can ask the question if you want to.
Yeah, no, carry on, Litheko.
Okay. You also particularly observed, which is very much interesting, how cultural events are organized and managed. Things like weddings, how people come together to ensure that a well-organized wedding is celebrated. How funerals are planned and make sure that everything runs smoothly. Money or no money, but the funeral will go ahead. Following the protocol of helping the chief or king first, and then the others will follow. How meetings were organized. We are saying all these presented learning opportunities which we have incorporated in your coaching methodology. But I find this very much remarkable, Semi, how you deciphered your cultural experiences in a manner that you have done. This is very much exceptional, sir, in my view. But I'm not surprised, because in chapter 7, we have explained how culture has shaped you and helped you to be able to identify opportunities and seize them. And the writing of this book is one of the examples that one can relate to. And this is critical, because now we are living in a world that promotes freedom of expression, freedom of thought, and freedom of association. Now the time to be dictated to on what to think and how to think is over. Let us rise and do our own work, our own writing, that will ensure that our cultural heritage and identity is incorporated in our writings and not to be interpreted by those who have not lived our lives. Semi, you further goes on to appreciate other elements of the cultural elements that has helped you to become what you are. Example, making time to have fun and participate in group activities. You highlight that as critical. To approach any obstacle as a learning experience and to turn it into an opportunity to seek means to improve yourself. You are not a quitter, sir. You are not a quitter. That's what I got from what you have written in that chapter. It also highlights the importance of adaptability. You are saying that people and even coaches must be aware of trends and changes in the environment in which they operate and adapt their processes accordingly. You're also saying culture evolves and should be responsive to changing environmental conditions. The question now is, are we conscious of these environmental changes? And how do we use them to communicate our point of view like we have done? And to ensure that our point of view is represented in social spaces and academic writings. So at least we have started saying when we discuss issues with colleagues, when we have a leisure time, we can talk about our book, your book, and what it's trying to tell us and what it's trying to indicate we need to do. Rather than talking about other people that we don't know. Not to say that you don't have to talk about them. We are talking about our own now. We are also highlighting the fact that coaches should be conscious of cultural nuances in their interaction with their clients to ensure productive partnership based on the uniqueness of each client. This one I like. You are saying we all have to be comfortable with our cultural uniqueness, as this, in my view, will contribute to strengthening and raising awareness of the diverse nature of today's global world. So this is why I'm so thrilled to be addressed as Elijah Litheko, because this affirms my cultural uniqueness as an African. Rare in other African languages in South Africa stands for Ntate, Baba, Tata, Tatana. Those are the ones that I could. If I've left others, I'm sorry. And has a dual meaning in an African context. And I haven't seen the same expression in other languages other than African. By dual meaning, I mean that as Re, as Ntate, as Tata, as Tatana, as Baba, we have dual responsibilities. You are a biological father to your children, but you are also a figurehead in the community in which you reside. And we have core responsibility with your peers for maintaining discipline, orderliness, respect, acceptable social norms, safety, and security for all community members in your community. And these systems worked like a bomb. It worked, and there was discipline, and kids couldn't do what they wanted to do in the presence of elders. It needs to be returned. We need to start the process of bringing this back because it works and it has worked. Because it contributed to orderliness and safe living environment for both young and old. Today, you cannot go into the street alone because you don't know what you are going to face or meet out there. That was not the question. Okay, so let's continue. Now you are saying also, no, before you go to that one, this is my contribution to the review. The African culture described in chapter 7 by Retsima is informed by the philosophy of Ubuntu world, whose rallying cry is Motu Kimotu Kabatu. Umuntu, Umuntu Gabantu.
Yes, sir.
Muni hi Babuai Vanu. Muti, Dimuti Gaba. So this expression, you find it in all African cultures. And that is what connects us. And this illustrates that Ubuntu Motu is a common philosophy within African communities. And what this philosophy is communicating is that we must treat other human beings the way we would like to be treated.
Yes.
Unconditional positive regard toward each other. That is our standard. That is our norm. And that's an environment in which you grew up. That's why in the olden days, you wouldn't find a street child in African communities.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
People will band together to make sure that it doesn't happen. And it didn't happen.
Yes.
This, in my view, needs to be restored. We can't continue like this, where we are afraid of our own, and yet we have the means and the knowledge to change the environment in which we live. So I'm wondering whether in this group, in Cometa family, we have the appetite to investigate this, to bring a new world order in African communities, even in other even areas. Because this system that I'm talking about now had an impact. And children were respectful of adults. Even if you love your girlfriend, you wouldn't hug him in front of the elders. And she wouldn't do it elsewhere because that was not allowed, unfortunately. But today, all sorts of norms and behaviors are expressed that people, most adults are shocked and they seem to be helpless. We can't behave like that. You can't continue to act as though we are helpless. We can do something. Now, Sammy, that's why I'm asking the Cometa family, do we have the appetite to investigate this matter and bring an alternative that will ensure that there's harmony, there's peace, there's security, there's safety in our communities?
Well, we'll ask the colleagues to reflect on that. It's a very good question. It's just been asked, and it continues to be asked. And the point raised by many people is to say that we don't say, let's go back and live like we used to live. But they're saying, let's go back and learn from how people used to live and adjust that and apply it in today's context with the hope of achieving the same impact that was achieved.
And if I may come in there, that Litheko.
Yes, sir.
It shouldn't be such a big hurdle for us to be able to work on that because, even if you read in this chapter, what it tells us, what it teaches us is that, we were never tourists in any other culture because we were never there to observe and acknowledge and live. Every culture we have come across as Africans, we observe, we learn as well, acknowledge and learn it, and somehow find a way of inculcating it into our own culture in a way that will benefit us. So I believe that if we can just kind of respect that and go back to that, go back to emphasizing the importance of culture, the importance of learning, to the young ones. I think we can win the battle, because the problem today is that we are not conscious of culture. We people are too much into subcultures rather than their culture. It's so we are so much embedded in subcultures than practicing our own culture before, because you can't put all your energy in subculture when you don't put any in your own culture. I don't know if I make sense, or if you can elaborate, if you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, you're not wrong, sir. But here's the issue. Here's the issue. I used to call the elders in the township or in the community, Ntate, Baba, Tatana, and all those things. Now, when I have reached that stage, you want to call me Elijah? No, sir. That's not how I grew up. No, sir. I told even white people, I told them, no, please understand who I am. You're not giving me any glory, but this is what this term represents. This is what it represents. And even the Seminoles, all the people that I used to work with, they call me Papa, because they know why. They know it's not Papa as a biological father.
Yes, but it's a
father as a figurehead.
Yes.
That looks after our interests, both at work and outside work.
And you have earned it.
And outside work, sir, if they come and cry here as a father figure, I need to work the solution out with them. Sam knows we work together.
Yes.
And and at least in terms of making sure that cultural diversity is accepted, that is my little contribution.
Ntate, any reflection from your side?
Thank you very much.
No, I haven't completed. There's one page, one paragraph that I still have to complete.
Okay, no problem.
I just wanted to alert you. You can continue, but there's one. I don't know whether you want to continue now or you want to wait for me to finish.
Maybe you can finish.
Okay. What I've also picked up from reading that chapter is that you are saying the cultural practices that you are exposed to were character building, and has taught you a few things, and I've just listed a few: discipline, setting goals, building synergies, personal reflection. Now, I'm saying personally, I've experienced you as a man who is methodical in your approach to work, who appreciates the pros and cons of everyday experiences, and has learned how to navigate the obstacles and turn them into opportunities. Approaching any challenging situation as a learning experience and not harping over the negatives. Being appreciative of a number of people that have helped you find your purpose in life. You are very focused. You used to call me at 2. I said, no, don't call me at 2, Simi. Call me later during the day. Intentional. Entrepreneurial to the point where you have developed and grown to establish your own coaching company and have also published a book. You have a desire to leave a legacy in your coaching company, as well as the book that you have written, are the initial manifestation of this desire. Finally, I would like to complete my contribution with this quotation by Harriet Tubman. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, You have within you the strength, patience, and passion to reach for the stars, to change the world. You don't have to wait for anybody else. That power is within each one of us. Thank you, Semi, and thank you, the Commander family.
Thank you so much, Litheko, for so powerful input. I knew that we will need the second hour to digest all the inputs that we will have had. Unfortunately, we haven't had full inputs from Leonard. We left with 8 minutes to finish this first hour. And I'm going to ask Ntate Muta to reflect for 2 minutes or 3, and then Mai to reflect for 2 or 3 minutes. And then we're going to end this first hour and transition after maybe a couple of minutes into the second hour and really open the conversations. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring in Leonard, because it looks like he hasn't been able to rejoin. Ntate Muta, 2 to 3 minutes from your side.
Thank you, Brasam and listeners. I want to confirm that and thank Ntate Litheko, because he has captured, as he was speaking, I was checking chapter by chapter, and I can confirm that he has captured all the salient points in the book, and ended up by indicating to us how the culture has given an impression of the kind of a person Brasem is. But during his presentation, he highlighted the issue of the multimedia environment that has affected our culture. So I want to, and he asked us a question: how do we leverage on the multimedia to continue to recognize our culture? I want to make an input by saying that on this multimedia, most of the soapies are viewed by families, and I can say maybe they promote family unification. Sorry. And some of the programs, our youth, they view them with envy, such that they try to emulate some of the superstars, and in this way they are gaining certain skills. Maybe the only problem is that they will have those skills, but they won't have people to promote them and to expose them. And you asked us a question: are we conscious of changes, and how do we respond to them? So I have noted that if you find yourself in a you find yourself in a township where you grew up and you have different cultures. In as far as I'm concerned, I know that as a social worker, I was obliged to learn many languages as I was interviewing our clients, and in the process, I had to understand through their engagement that there are diverse cultures that we need to understand, because with them also they had to try and understand my language. So I think, we need to be conscious of those changes and try to adapt to them.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Well, let me give my opportunity to reflect as well. We're going to go into the second hour, and we will unpack all this input. I'm just watching time with 4 minutes before we finish the first hour. Over to you, Mai.
One thing that I liked what you said, and that Litheko, it's when you talk about tool of storytelling, which you highlighted that also applies in coaching, and for me, because I'm in the arts, and I believe that what is indicated here in this book, it's showing that there is no culture without art. Where there's culture, there is art. So this also brings me to an acknowledgement of corporate using art. So meaning that somehow we should promote art in communities in order to be able to hold on to our cultures, because every culture cannot survive without art. So we need to work on art to make sure, like the book says, that we Africans, we sing when we are sad, we sing when we are happy. That's art. That's another form of art. So I like that you mentioned that even in coaching, in corporate, you still use an art form. So I think, to answer your question, how do we kind of regain this our culture? My answer to you is that we need to work on reviving art in society.
Basically saying that there's no need for us to force it. We actually have a tool in the form of art to promote culture until actually it becomes indeed culture as it is, the way of being.
Yes, exactly. Because this is not always known, but this is something that Litheko, you ignited this in me, that you made me aware that somehow we look at things separatively. We look at we like individualizing, whereas things are married to each other. We can't individualize them. We have to look at them holistically. And this is just in this book. This is what you get. You get the sense that if we look at things holistically, we can find answers. But if we look at them individually, we'll never find answers.
Quite true.
It speaks to the issue of identity that Litheko has brought up. That just because you are in corporate, you're not going to stop being
Yes.
Because this is who you are, and you are not suppressing anybody's way of referring to the elders.
Yes.
But you are also saying that don't suppress it just because it's not my environment.
Yes. And at the same time, it doesn't mean just because already tape, it means you can't sing, you can't dance, you're just a coach. No. I dance, I haven't heard you sing, but I'm sure you've got those art forms within you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think this Litheko and Ramutla and Leonard, it sets a scene for us to go into the second hour to extract messages from the chapter, but also come up with proposals and suggestions. How, if we were to really inculcate this into our way of life, we can do it. And you have just mentioned one example being art, which actually everybody understands. And maybe there could be other ways we could actually do that, because that seems to be. And I think that Ramuta did ask in one of the previous shows to say, what can we do before our children reaches 21 so that we don't lose them? And I think that we are actually addressing that. I'm going to suggest, because I see we left with almost 50 seconds to finish this first chapter. I'm asking the listeners not to go away, because we're just going to take a very quick break and be back into the second hour, almost just like that, so that we can really continue, and hopefully we find that Mavuso to join us. You stay in the studio for now, Litheko and Ntate Ramuta. Don't go away.
I just keep where I am now. I don't do anything.
Yeah, you can keep where you are until I come back to you and direct you as to how we connect into the second hour.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the same to you, Ntate Ramutla. And Mai and I, we are seated opposite each other, so we are just observing how things in the back. Yeah. So I'm not sure whether the Ramutla you actually got the input from in the form of suggestions using art to advance our culture, and I think you can also come with some of your additional inputs based on what you have read from the chapter, while Leonard is still trying to log in.
Indeed, what I have observed is the role that is played by the schools in ensuring that culture through sport is taking place. If you look at different high schools, they've got different sporting codes. But where the experience I have is when my daughter was in Dramis. You know, Dramis is a very, very disciplined sport. It teaches our girls, our girl children, respect. It teaches them discipline. It teaches them the art because they belong to different codes within their teams. And I'm very proud of my daughter having been one of the drummies at Lynn Primary, and she's taking from where she left, because in the section we are staying, she used to establish her own team of young ladies, and this was teaching them discipline and teaching them respect as well. But the other thing that I want to suggest to celebrate our culture is, I think in South Africa we have different days that we are recognizing, and we need to, when we celebrate these days, I think we need to take our children along, because in those days, in those celebrations, there are different activities that are taking place, so that then the children are able to strengthen their ability to participate in our cultural activities. Thank you.
Yes, that was beautiful, Ntate Ramut. And I like the fact that, you raise discipline, because, when you talk about discipline, art is one of the very important tool in teaching discipline, because in art, you are given free space to excel in what you've got, in your own talent, but at the same time, respecting the boundaries. I don't know if I make sense, but it is just like you're referring to sports as a very disciplined discipline, but art is also like that. You can never, even if you practice karate, karate has its own kind of rituals that you cannot do A, B. And I think that the problem with our society today is that we have concentrated too much into entertainment without entertainment that consists of real art. Because if we were to use art as part of entertainment, not only using like your digital media space for art, but using interacting performances, we would be able to restore even respect within our communities, because that's what art is. Art is full of discipline.
Wow. Welcome back, Litheko. We are in the second hour, and we are exploring what means and ways through which we can actually advance cultures, not only our own cultures, but cultures broadly. And I want you colleagues, to keep on reflecting on why this is important for those coaches and mentors out there in their interaction with their clients. While we're promoting art, but in terms of application, why would this be helpful if you liken this to an identity of somebody? Litheko, you must have missed the earlier inputs by but he's suggesting that art is very critical in actually advancing culture. And we are just talking about culture in general, but we also want to reflect on applying it to our day-to-day life, because it's not art just standing separate from there. It is actually defining who we are, and it actually lay the foundation in terms of how we show up in our daily lives.
Semi,
Ready to go?
I think we need to recognize that for quite a long time, our way of living as Africans has had quite a beating. It was relegated or placed in a relegation zone. It was not something that is in everybody's eye. It was not in the public space. We need to have ways to restore that. Art is one of the way of doing it, where we hear and share who we are, like all other people are doing. We need to reclaim our space also. I don't think everything African is wrong there, to be honest with you. Respect, I think we are the most respecting people on earth. Caring, I think that one is a quality that is expressed all over. Without money, you can look after others as well. So all those good values were relegated to the bottom. And individualism. We are a communal society, say. We can't try and live the way other people are living. It's not in us. We believe in order. We believe in sequence. There's nothing wrong in living like that. How do we enter that place where we can see ourselves in business, in all social formations that are in the country and elsewhere?
And make our culture coexist with other cultures.
Exactly.
Yes. And one other aspect that on this chapter that I find very interesting is the fact that Prasem also illustrates that through storytelling it was part of entertainment, but not only was it entertainment, it was character building. You kind of became someone out of the stories that you have heard. And out of that, with Prasem came out a coach. I'm sure that there could be storytellers, there could be doctors that came out of that, because that's one of the things that we no longer do, storytelling. Because a story told from a radio or TV or social media, and a story told by a live performance by your own blood is different. I know the stories that my mother has told me. My mother is very old now. Sometimes she repeats herself. But at no point do I stop her. At no point do I say, Mama, you have told me this story before. Because every time I listen to her, it builds me. It makes it just ignites something in me. Because, she tells stories 40 years, 50 years, 60 years back. She tells stories about when I was not even here. Stories when she first got married, how she was treated at my father's family. She tells me even today, she's over 90, she still tells me these stories and I still listen. And my wife I'm treating my wife with the respect because of those stories that I've heard from my mother. I treat my wife because I don't want my wife to go through what my mom went through. So that's what I'm saying. Storytelling and TV, and these are not the same. That's what I'm saying. We should never lose these art forms.
I think what is quite very interesting, and I like the challenge that Litheko has thrown at us, that you have a very powerful medium today. How can we integrate this storytelling into the medium we have today that attracts young people and capture them? I think that is quite very powerful, basically he's saying that you've got technology platforms now where your storytelling can even go viral beyond your own area.
Yes, but my emphasis is on trying to change the mindset of trying to look into the family structures of today and trying to change or rather to restore family structures, because today in our society we don't have family structures, and if you can restore that, have families have a time to themselves, not television, not cell phone, but to themselves. Just have a time. Like I don't live with my mom, but when I go to my mother's house, there is that time when I'm not watching TV, she's not watching TV, it's just me and her, we are talking. Only if we can restore that in our families, that parents need to interact with their children. The interaction should not be just only when you need to send them to do something or when you need to ask them, where's so-and-so? No, we need to sit down, talk, have that relationship where we know that even if it can be 30 minutes, because that's what used to happen. What if you read chapter 7? That's exactly what Sam Tima wrote about here. That we used to sit around the fire and have a storyteller. Now, today we might not call that person a storyteller. That person can just be a father talking to his children, telling his children where he comes from, telling his children what happened at work. Because today we've got what they call pillow talk. It's like everything, it's only between men and husband and wife. But it shouldn't be like that. We need to have a couch talk, not just pillow talk. We need to have a sitting room talk. Because in the old age, during those times, it was in a round table. Now, we no longer have that. We have sofas in the lounge. Let's sit there, switch off the TV, and let's talk, my children.
Beautiful. You do have a lot of conversations with your family. Is it enough?
Yes. I want to share with you and Litheko the new culture that is evolving amongst our children.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. My little son is always glued to the Popeyes on the TV, the Popeye. And I see him laughing. Then I say, I'm going to restrict you from seeing the Popeye unless you tell me the meaning from the Popeyes when they finish. And then I've realized that those Popeyes that are replacing the formal storytelling are very important in the intellectual development of the children. I've seen much improvement from him. But I want to check with all of you the storytelling from SABC 1. Some of the stories tells are reflecting on the old stories that we listened to when we grew up. So I want to check with you if there is any integration of the past into the present in as far as this media are playing. But before I finish, I want to share with you this thing of storytelling. We view it as very, very important. But what I've observed, Prasem, is that each and every activity around storytelling, you are able to express it in Sepedi and interpret it into English. In other words, this is educational in nature. If you listen to the Nonwane, the Tai, the Rai, Meshamo, Lino Lamshahare, Renchana Saino, Retoba Hoveka. For those people who are not Bapedi, the way you are explaining them, it's a little bit
Very sexy.
and they have an impact on who we are. If you look at Murabaraba, the people who are playing Murabaraba, they are always very much close, very much united, and
It's a team.
they display each and every competency of them, and they feel very good when there is a winner. So I think that
with treasure hunt, Ramutla. You know,
indeed,
I have to listen very attentively to that instrument called Usurwani, because if you miss the point, it sends messages that are very distinct. So you have to have a very good listening skill.
I think, Rasam, as I say, to us who grew up in the townships, but being Batediko, Komahwe, Mbaloboa, Komahwe, you are sharpening our soul by bringing all these concepts and interpreting them in English. Thank you.
Ramutla. When you speak about stories that are being told on television and children listening to them, I kind of can associate with that because there was a time when I found my son. Actually, I didn't find my son. My son related a story that I knew. This story, I mean, I've read this story when I was in sub A during those times, and I've heard it before, And I had to ask him, where did you hear this? Where did you get this story? Because that's the tradition with me and my son. He's a storyteller. He's a very good storyteller, and I always give him that platform to tell me stories. So when he told me the story, I could tell that it's an old story. And he said to me, he was watching, he got the story from television. And I was very impressed that they do. And then we had to set it because there was a repeat. And then we had to watch it together. I said, yeah, they've done justice to it. That's how I know the story. So I like when you say that maybe we also need to encourage more stories to be told on TV and radio. But I still insist that we also need to tell our children stories ourselves, because that when we interact with them, that also builds a bond between us and them. And it takes us back to what the previous speaker last week asked us. If what George said, that if you can take your son when he's 21 years old, when you take your child to dinner when they are 21 years old and sit opposite them, would you like what you're seeing? That was a very fundamental question. And I've always, and my answer to that was that what you're going to see, it's you 21 years back, what you have all been doing until he's 21. Beautiful.
So, you are back. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very well, and we're really trying to hear some of your reflection from the chapter, if you can.
Yes, thanks, colleagues. I managed to listen also on the other platform. I was able to catch up the whole the way you're going about how we should appreciate storytelling. And what I want to put in my reflection, it's a question of language, which I think you have used it very well in terms of this particular chapter, Brasem, by using an African language, especially African sayings, and interpret them in English. I've come across these young people where they mixed languages when they speak. And the biggest question I always have on myself when I listen to them, I say, I wonder how much of the researchers are beginning to tap this into a language that is a modern language used by young people, and use that on these social platforms so that you can be able to bring back the young people to our own culture. Because we're gradually losing them to a foreign culture. not purposely so, but because we are not influencing the new medium of culture, which is revolves around social media. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I think the message is clear, and I'm glad Leonard is addressing this, because I think Litheko triggered something very, very interesting here, that we have a powerful medium and we need to bring content to it. And I'm really, really liking that very much. And I'm taking it as a challenge and a homework, Litheko. Thanks for bringing that up, because we are losing opportunity here where the young people are assembling, and we are not
Yeah. We are not there. Man, can I make an illustration?
Yeah.
I went to a Bantu education school in a township. My children went to Mater C school. The challenges arising out of that, some were so huge because they came with their own point of view. Like the other speakers have said, sit with their children, talk to them, bond with them. We sat with them and discussed why some of the things that they're saying are not acceptable to us. For instance, we grew up knowing that drug logs is equal to drugs. Isn't it true?
Yes. And I used to have very long ones.
So when they came up with a suggestion of dreadlocks, they think everybody does that.
Yeah.
We said, but you are not everybody. You are Litheko. And unfortunately, this is how the Lithekos are expected to behave.
And to look.
Rather, cut your hair, chiscop. I'm with a different, with a uniqueness. And that helped to shift their thinking. So you'll be unique and you'll be admired for being unique. And fortunately, that's what happened, because they were different from their colleagues. And that difference made them special in their small community. So what I'm trying to say is that parents should be aware that there are other influences now that were not there when we grew up. Because our influence was localized. Today's influence is global.
Yeah.
So when you, in your interaction with your kids, don't appear as though you're outdated. Show them that you're also aware of the new developments and how they must navigate their lives around them. Because if you sound outdated, I think there's going to be tension between the parents and the children.
It's equal to the topic that is so common today, the intergenerational diversity.
Yes. But if you demonstrate that you are aware of what is happening and compare the now and the past, that will assist.
Wow.
And bring the good points of the past into play currently.
Wonderful. Ntate Mavuso, any other points? Leonard? Okay. I think he probably hears us, but we can't hear. We can't hear him. Yeah. Yes.
Ntate Litheko, one of the things that you raised earlier, from what I could take from what you're saying, is that when you talk about the African culture, when you spoke in length about African culture,
yes,
and that is what Prasem also wrote about in this chapter. And what I get is that, compassion is African. More compassionate people you can find in the world. But because of subcultures, we seem to be losing that. I'll make you an example, which I'm going to just read a few lines from the book, where Sam says, I quote, "If you arrive at someone's house and find them having meals, you are invited to join in and eat together." That is an idiomatic expression that, when translated, means that when you eat in front of other people, you make them hungry too.
Exactly.
I mean, that is something that we grew up with. But do we still practice it?
No.
I know that, I had a nephew when I was still living at my mother's house. He'll come into the house with his friends and eat in front of them. I'll say, no, we don't do that. That cannot happen. And I'm so glad that my son doesn't do that. He's very compassionate. He's very, giving. And I like that about him. And I think that is something that, in this book, that I find to be one of the highlights of the distortion of our culture, the loss that we are going through when it comes to our culture. Because you would never walk into somebody's house and find them eating and they do not offer you. But today it happens.
But as Sam has said, we are not helpless.
Yes.
That is what we need to understand.
Yes.
We can do something about the situation ourselves.
Yes. No, the emphasis should actually be there. The emphasis should be on what do we do to correct this. That's where the emphasis is. We're just bringing these antidotes and just highlighting some of this, but the emphasis should be on how do we correct this. And we're raising this because we want listeners to take this home and say, yes, let's make a retrospect. Let's get into let's retrospect and say, and look at what we apply. What application are we on right now? Are we on the or are we on every man for himself?
And just to expand on that, because the context with which we're bringing this topic was to say that you could find yourself in a situation where you are either a leader or you are a mentor or a coach to somebody who is very disconnected to their culture. And they are not realizing that the reason why they have a disorientation and not coping very well in a culturally diverse environment is that they themselves actually don't have a foundation or awareness of who they are. And it becomes very difficult for them to then engage with other cultures which they're not even theirs. If they are lost to their own culture, Litheko, from an HR point of view, this really must be a very common topic when we talk about cultural diversity. And what you do then to help that person who doesn't even appreciate the fact that actually he has a culture and he needs to understand how that culture impacts him or her in his relationship with other people.
Yes, in my contribution, I did raise that point, Semi, to say accepting other people's cultures will actually help inculcate a sense of cultural diversity, because now we are cognizant of the differences in the variations of cultures within our midst.
Yeah, and in cultural promotion, basically saying that you don't necessarily have to assert yourself in such a way that you think your culture is the only one that matters. It's basically to say,
yes,
my culture too.
Yes.
Among these many others.
Yes, and the other point is that you can't be culturally inclined. Think that because this is your culture, so therefore your culture is better than the others. And I can tell you now that when it comes, that there's what we call mental health. There are people that are suffering from mental health, not because of any other, but because of cultural differences because of the cultural, not knowing their own culture, and mixing everything in one pot, without understanding that you need to first understand your culture before you can understand somebody's culture. And people end up being, mentally disturbed. Mm. So it is very important that one knows their culture before you even try to emulate or try to study or learn somebody else's culture.
I'm very interested to hear from Leonard because as a consultant, his practice is humanity and talent consulting. Leonard, I'm not sure whether you are following. I really would love
No,
to.
I do follow. I can hear you.
Yes, I really want to get your perspective there because I'm sure in your daily consulting, these topics feature prominently.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell a story which I came across in one of my research colleagues. That there was this person, an African person, was invited to a function in Europe, and the invite was very clear. It says everyone must be dressed culturally.
Yeah,
He came there with his suit, and the security guy wouldn't allow him on the gate. He said, "Look, did you read the invite, sir?" Then he turned back and came back with his cultural gear,
yeah.
and the security guy smiled and let him in. All I'm trying to say is that, look, we need to promote these brands. I call them brands personally.
Mm. Wow, interesting.
But Leonard, if I came wearing a suit and I'm saying to you, this is my culture, what's wrong with that? I'm in corporate.
Yeah. Is not able to respond.
Oh, yes,
We
yes.
lost him again. Yeah, but it just shows that it's a very interesting topic, and I'm glad we are engaging at this level because what we are trying to do is to create awareness and appreciation,
Yes.
right? And being aware and appreciating, you make an effort to really align, not necessarily only with your own culture, but also other cultures that might be prevailing around you.
The other thing, Rajitev,
Hello, sir.
yes, the other thing that I think can make a contribution into preserving our culture and also kind of curving the scourge of children going astray. I think we need to kind of look into, the way Sam did in this book, using a lot of idioms. Yes, our children go to Model C schools, but we still need to kind of talk to them in their language. Still need, because I know when we say let's talk to them in their language, I also do the same. I don't talk to my son in my language. I talk to my son in street language. But I try sometimes that I speak pure Pedi with him, and sometimes I do speak in idioms, just so that because youngsters are very curious. You cannot say something they don't understand and not ask you. And somehow this builds character, because these idioms were not just made for the sound of it. They're not made because they rhyme. They were made to build character. And if we can start doing that again with our children, that we start throwing idioms when you talk to them, so that they can ask, what does that mean? Just for instance, that one that Molomo Ojang Orohaumu. Already you have taught your child that, when you eat, invite others to eat with you. You can't eat when others are watching. And there's so many of these idioms that we know, but we are not imparting them to the young ones. And I think that's another way, because you asked the question, how do we restore culture? I think idioms are the best way to go about. Before we even start with art, let's start with idioms. Let's start with idioms. Let's talk to children, tell them the meaning, use idioms and tell them the meaning.
Indeed. Prasam,
Yes.
as everybody was making their inputs, I was, as I said, going through the book, and I realized that we acknowledge that there is a myriad of cultures. But on page 130, you say locating yourself within this myriad of cultures is what matters most. And you indicate this thing as very important. You say this informs your perspective as a mentor, coach, or a client. And you finally said we impact the culture of the organization we are working with. I think in our inputs, all of us, we acknowledge that wherever we are working, whatever organizations we belong to, we impact our cultures in those organizations. Those cultures are aggregates of many subcultures, and they impact us too. Yeah, I think you said we will also contribute to their evolution. If you promote your culture, other people will be interested and learn from it. I think this one has been confirmed. Culture of the world can and should coexist. We are the carriers of these cultures as we move from space to space, broadening our perspectives and worldview and sharing our insight with the world. I think, colleagues, this was the best way of concluding the book. But he further said that it remains our responsibility to transfer knowledge from generation to generation, and that storytelling is an instrument that is powerful and is used in coaching. We need the skill to engage meaningfully in conversation, grow in confidence, and hold space for authentic engagement. This paragraph has summarized all the inputs that we have been putting on the table. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Dadra Muta, for pointing that paragraph. Appreciate it.
Yeah, but it doesn't conclude the book. It concludes the chapter.
The chapter.
Indeed, the chapter, not the book.
We still have a long way to go.
13 more chapters.
Yeah, yeah. And do we all agree? And I mean, this is not imposing, but in writing a book, one of the very interesting tasks is to come up with the title of a chapter. Never mind the title of a book. And tell me if you read what I tried to highlight in this chapter. It's a very cheeky titling because it says you are your culture. And I thought I would hear somebody say, no, Sam, I'm not my culture. Any reflection there? Because it's making assumptions that everybody will agree with this statement or this title.
For me, I would say that when you say you are your culture, I might find that a little bit belittling, in a sense that culture evolves. But then I might also contradict myself and say, who says I'm static? So for me, if I have to describe myself, I would say, yes, I am my culture. I am an artist. So art is a culture. So I am my culture because I'm an artist. Somebody might say, I'm what? I'm a dancer. So
yeah. So now it's also suggesting that I could have said that your culture defines you.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
But I also go further and say that your culture is not static.
Yes.
It's dynamic.
Yes.
Which means then you are not static, as you have said.
Yes.
So now, something that I raised during the launch and that I have a Barbadian culture as a very original culture. But me living in a foreign country for a certain number of years, I've integrated some of the practices in that culture into mine. But I'm consciously saying it did not remove and replace my Barbadian culture. It's just sort of like make me a little bit more diverse.
Yeah, but that is it what we were saying earlier, that culture is something that, especially we Africans, when we don't only just, I don't know how many times I've said this, but I'm going to say it again. We don't only we're not tourists when it comes to culture. We don't look at the culture, acknowledge it, and walk away. No, we always look at it, appreciate it, acknowledge it, learn it, and inculcate it into our own and make it our own. Which is why, if you look all over the world, there is always, if you are into arts or sports, there will always be an African that represents a foreign country in that discipline. It can be sports, it can be arts, it can be whatever. There will always be an African, because that's what we're given with. We not only look at things, appreciate them, and walk away.
So the whole African continental culture is influencing football.
Yes, the whole African continent is influenced not only in sports, but even in the arts. Hence, that's why when you go to countries like Spain, you'll find them beating a drum. You can go to America. They've got American natives, what they used to call Red Indians. We can say maybe it's Kupu Batatagugu, but we know that is very African. That drum that you hit with your hands, it's very African, but it's all over the world. That's something that sometimes we are not even aware of the greatness within us.
Hello.
Yes, Litheko.
Before I come to the culture, that visibility that who's talking Ramuta for those who are talking now,
It's my.
Yeah. That visibility that you're talking about, that we are everywhere.
Yes.
But our impact is not as great as it should be.
Yes.
Because of the impact that we have in sports. So there's something lacking there. There's something in terms of how we promote ourselves, how we advance our thought within the world space. So we need to look at how we can make sure that we operate at an equal level with all other cultures across the globe.
But like
if I can come in there.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted just to add on what Ray Elijah is saying. I think what has happened, we join the world as individuals instead of joining the world as a group.
Yes.
To such an extent, we always become a minority, even if our cultural expression is so visible. To such an extent that people start stealing from us and commercializing what we are expressing. Then we remain there as a minority. Why? Because we've allowed ourselves to be assimilated by these other cultures.
Yes. But and one other thing is that, like I said, that sometimes we fail to see the greatness in us. We always sell ourselves short. You can just take this from we what I coined as regionalists. That I will never see greatness from a person that comes from my same region. It has to be somebody outside, and that plague is not only with a small group of people, but it's kind of a very huge problem in Africans, that we kind of see greatness outside. We can never see it inside. You will never see your brother making it to the top until he does. Somebody else from outside is the one that will be seeing that this guy is going places. You in the house, nobody sees that. So that is a very huge problem that we have. It's actually a plague that we suffer from. Hence, we'll always be individualistic when we go outside. And I agree with you, Leonard, that we go as individuals because we never lift each other up.
So as influencers, who we are, we can start creating that awareness and really some suggestion how we can collectively make impact, because people outside us appreciate our culture.
Yes.
Accept ourselves.
Accept ourselves. Yes. Yes.
Wow. I'm watching time, and I thought 2 hours was going to be long enough to cover everything. But we might not be able to. I hope we have actually created that appetite, as Litheko was saying. Is there appetite among us to do something about this? And I'm sure there is. So if we can just maybe round up, we have the guidelines at the end of the chapter, like in all other chapters. As you round up, share with us what impact has this conversation done for you, and hopefully in the round up we will be able to capture your recommendations as well. And Ntate Mutla, I'm going to start with you because you have done this many times. If you can lead us into checking out, please, using the guideline outside, and we'll ask the other colleagues to.
In the beginning of the program, I had already shared the aha moment and the new behaviors and practices I would like to bring and the confirmation. Now I would like to share with you my take home. My take home is that culture is dynamic. As I've indicated, man is not only a being, but always a becoming. Number two, culture is universal. It is found all over the world, but with different diversities. Number three, if you don't know where you come from, any road will lead you anywhere and you may get lost. Actually, where you come from is informed by your cultural background. Number four, culture reflects on the past and informs the future. And my new insight and knowledge is that we need to incorporate and integrate culture into our current coaching and mentoring methodologies and practices. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ntate Mutla. Leonard, your closing remarks?
My closing remarks, Chair, as per the guidelines, what has been confirmed to me is that storytelling is a powerful instrument to teach. And I think it has been there amongst Africans for a long time. And I think we should reinforce it. And my aha moment, I think it was around the whole spirit of sharing as Africans, especially when it comes to when a person visits you and you're having dinner. You don't give that person a cup of tea. In fact, you can share a date with him.
Yeah.
And it also sent me back to some of the practices we find, especially in the north, where you've got what you call lisenke, when the Quran Mr. Where men will assemble using their bare hands.
Yeah.
That's part of the culture. I think, exactly. I think all those expressions, some of them I didn't understand it, but as I read the context, I started seeing them through. Yeah. I think new insights for me, Brasem, is that, look, I think you've raised a very passionate subject, which I hope in your volume 2, you'll be able to go deeper into it, because I think we have done a bit of injustice to this particular topic on this particular book.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks for the challenge. Great. I think we lost Leonard again, but we had him, what he has to say. Litheko, your closing remarks?
Thank you, sir. I think this book has started a revolution in terms of helping us to transform our thinking. That's my aha moment.
Mm.
New insight and knowledge. I think we have articulated it very well that obstacles are not obstacles. They're actually learning opportunities, learning experiences, and opportunity to do something different, to navigate around them. Take home for the chapter. Character building is critical to everybody because that will take you somewhere to help you to reach the stars. New behaviors, engaging with people like yourselves on a regular basis, just to make sure that the one is not left behind in the Cometa family. That is so wonderful. I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ntate. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. Mike?
Yes, my take home for this from this chapter is mostly based on the storytelling. This is something that I was not aware of, but I believe that through storytelling, I think one learned even retention. Being able for you to be able to remember the story word by word and be able to differentiate between the different storytellers, how they tell it. It also shows your level of understanding, your level of retention, and also your character is built through that. Because now you also learn to differentiate perspectives. And the other thing is that the story, the chapter also has really opened my eyes in seeing that art played a very big role in our traditional upbringing as compared to our urban upbringing. When you grow up in Soweto like I did, the last time I was told a story, it was when I was it was before we had a TV at home. Soon as we had TVs, that was gone. And which is why I'm saying I'm trying to resuscitate that with my family, that we need to kind of start again and practice that. So that is my take from this chapter, that it has given me that opportunity to say, aha, this is where we've been missing. This is what we've been missing. Let's go back to this. I thank you.
Leonard, do you want to finish your checking out?
Yes, Prasem, in checking out, I think we should explore the possibility of bringing this into schools so that we can be able to influence our young people.
Yeah.
It's a platform that is readily available. We can do it on a pro bono basis. It could be our social responsibility, but we would have planted a seed.
Absolutely. We're going to definitely note this one once we're done with all the chapters. I think we need to revisit that. Is one of the takeaways from the various taking outs. Thank you so much, Leonard. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch? Otherwise, 2 minutes to go.
No, I think I'm done, person.
Okay. I want to thank you in particular and Litheko for being responsible for redoing this chapter. Thank you so much, and I can see the discussion not ending here. And as always, my two colleagues, Mai here next to me, and Ntate Mutla, wonderful indeed. They are the people who are holding forth and making sure that our reviewers are welcome and settled down. We miss Ntate Spice Sroko Oliva Uwapogole. We hope he recovers very quick to be with us next week when we will be reviewing Chapter 8, inspired by village football. There I have a youngsters in Patrick Zima and Monamuleli Rambedi, the that have experienced village football, and they are now the young generation moving up the ladder in their careers, and they're going to be sharing with us their experience of village football, but also what they are taking away from this chapter.
And also what the difference, I mean, because I don't understand village football. There's village football, there's suburbia football, there's township football. How do you get
Hello, Semi.
football?
Yes, Litheko.
Before you close,
Yeah.
I just want to thank my co-reviewer.
Yes.
Even if we haven't met, but I think we're a good part.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Well, definitely when we celebrate the journey together at the end, we'll definitely I once again acknowledge you guys. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much, Litheko.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Let's stay. Don't go away. Stay in the studio as we're saying goodbye to our listeners and inviting them to remember to check Komaza Radio podcast.com for the previous sessions, but also anybody wants to get the book, they can get it on Amazon online retail, amazon.com/author/coach-Samzima-2023. They can get the book there. And it's still a long way, only chapter 8 next week until we get to chapter 21. You can imagine how much ground we'll have covered by the end of September. We want to thank our listeners. Thank you very much, listeners. As always, we meet you next week.